Somebody singing, we shall. Let it ring out that we shall overcome someday. Yeah, deep in my heart, oh, I believe that we shall overcome someday. Well, we shall. Somebody singing, we shall. Let it ring out that we shall overcome someday. Yeah, deep in my heart, I believe that we shall overcome some.
Welcome, Rainbow Push family. We are delighted you have chosen to tune in to the live Rainbow Push broadcast. Today we're broadcasting live on several stations. We're live on Impact. We want to thank the Impact Network. We're live on WVON AM. We're live on iHeartMedia, and we are streaming live on our website, rainbowpush.org. You can go there and you go to Facebook Live. You can watch us live streaming. We welcome our family here in the United States and our satellite cities of New York, D.C., Detroit, Atlanta, and Silicon Valley. We are grateful to those who are watching across the continent of Africa, South America, across Europe, and in the Caribbean, and even China. Thank you for joining us. If you were not at the International Convention last week, you should have been. We convened the whole family. Thank you for all who attended. We thank our international delegation. We thank all of our sponsors. We thank Danny Glover. We thank so many others who joined us at the convention. We thank, oh, wait a minute, we have a tweet. Hello, Colette Ficklin. Thank you for always joining us and watching us each and every Saturday. If you will tweet us, text us, we will call your name out, give you a shout out on the broadcast. And now there are some particular things that we want you to be concerned about today. Thanks to, as we dedicate this broadcast to the family of one of our former staff members, a noted Chicago activist whose father, Minor Allen, made his transition this week, the father of Mark Allen. We're praying for that family as they funeralize the patriarch today. We're also praying for the family of John Mack, former president of the Los Angeles Urban League today. We are praying for the family of Margaret Branch, daughter of the late Ben Branch. He was the saxophonist that Dr. King was speaking to on his last day on earth. We're praying for the family of Antoine Ross, the teenager who died in Pittsburgh. And we're praying for peace in Pittsburgh for the students and other students who were shot and killed during violence this week. You should know that in Chicago, we have startling statistics. One person is shot every 3 minutes and 13 seconds. One person every 3 minutes and 13 seconds, a person is shot. One person is killed every 16 hours and 34 minutes in Chicago. Every 16 hours and 34 minutes. We're also praying for all of those families, persons who've lost loved ones to gun violence. We're praying for those families whose children have been shot and injured as a result of violence. But on a positive note, we want to say happy birthday to one of our founders, the Reverend Clay Evans, who was the first chairman of the board of Operation Push. He is celebrating his actual 93rd birthday today. We thank God he is with us and still leading us in his way. Today, our Summer STEAM Sports Institute opens. Parents, you can still register your students. It is a powerful experience that we want every child within the city of Chicago to enjoy, and we're urging churches and pastors and faith organizers and community organizers to send your children to us, that they might be prepared for science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math, and also be fit at the end of the summer. Today, our founder, our national president, Reverend Jackson, is not here. He is with Reverend William Barber at a rally for the Poor People's Campaign in Washington, D.C., so he is still on the case. but we have a ram in the bush, and we'll talk more about him as our choir comes to us in their own way singing our musical selection. Chris Hodges and Maurice Mahan, let's have our music, and then we'll come back and talk about the convention. Let's go with the music. We have a special guest soloist today. Lanasia Tyson is going to give our choir a brief break, and she's going to come in her own way.
Praise the Lord, everybody. So we're going to do a little song. It's entitled Praise Party. We'd like to give God some praise this morning. Hallelujah. Tell you what to do when the devil starts bugging you. Just put him where he's meant to be, and that's underneath your feet. You gotta let the devil know that God is in control. So when he tries to show his face, lift your hands and say, hey, let's dance. Yep. Hey, let's shout. Let's shout. Yeah, let's praise. Let's get the praise party started. Come on. Come on, let's clap. Come on, let's rock. Come on, let's praise. Hey, let me encourage you. You see, we all fall short, we do. But you can't let the devil win, thinking God won't forgive your sin. Resist the devil and he will flee, and then begin to claim the victory. Your best weapon is your worship and praise. Follow me and lift your hands and say, let's dance, let's shout, let's get the praise party started. Come on, let's clap, let's rock. What you're going through, my God will see you through. And if he did it before, you see, you can't let the devil think he stole your joy from you. You gotta be strong and keep your hands up in the air so you can confuse the devil, y'all, because the devil can't stand when you give God praise. Just keep your hands up in the air. Let's dance, y'all. Let's shout. Let's get the praise party started. Come on with me. Come on with me. Hey, let's get the praise party started. I said keep your hands up in the air. Dance with me. Let's shout. Let's get the praise party started. Come on with me. Come on with me. Hey, we got a praise party going on in here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, I just keep my hands up in the air. It's a praise party. A praise party. What I do is I pick them up and put them down. I pick my feet up and put them down and go side to side. My praise party up in here. Praise party. Praise party. Hey, God bless you.
We have a praise party, we have a people's party, we have a workers' party. We are here to change the conditions under which our people live today. And so while we celebrate this moment, we also encourage you to join us, get involved, get engaged. There's work to do. We have with us a young man who is really moving into the tech space. He's organized and founded Black Tech Mecca. They're having a major event this week. We're connecting to millennials. They're connecting to us. They're taking us into the next level of business space. Won't you greet Fabian Elliott as he comes?
Everybody, it's a pleasure to be here. As mentioned, my name is Fabian Elliott, CEO of Black Tech Mecca. And essentially what we do is help cities to better leverage data to build stronger Black tech ecosystems. But what does that really mean? So just like the Reverend is going out to Silicon Valley and beating the table with the tech companies in Silicon Valley, what we're looking at is how can we create our own Black Silicon Valleys? How can we create our own strong Black tech ecosystems in cities across the country? And so what we're working on and what we have coming up is our State of the Black Tech Ecosystem Summit that is next week. And we're really excited about it because we're going to be convening leaders from around the country that are spearheading community initiatives in their cities. The folks that are starting coding boot camps in their cities, the folks that are creating opportunities for entrepreneurs and starting entrepreneur incubators in their city. We're going to be convening them here to Chicago. And we're going to have some interesting activities as well. So on Monday, we're going to have our talent showcase. So if you know anyone that's interested in technology, or looking to break into technology, we're going to be having some of the top tech companies, Google, Microsoft, Discover Financial, Chase, JVM Morgan, all coming to be able to give jobs and opportunities to our communities. So that's going to be Monday at the IIT in Bronzeville, the Illinois Institute of Technology. And so that's going to be an awesome opportunity to be able to connect our community with these awesome tech opportunities. So we're happy to be able to, be a small part in making that happen. And then the rest of the week, things kick off on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we're just going to have a ton of interactive workshops for folks that are looking to create change in their cities. We're going to have mixers and awesome talks for anyone who's looking to get involved in driving the tech sector innovation for our community. So we're super excited about the State of the Black Tech Ecosystem Summit that's coming up next week. If you're interested in getting more information on the website, our website is sbte.co. So not .com, .co. We're being fancy, so sbte.co. And we do actually, I was able to work something out with the team where for, Push members and the Push community, we set aside some complimentary community passes that are, $100 in value, but we're going to be giving those out to the Push community. And you can take advantage of that when you go to the website, you go to get your tickets. Before you pay, remember, before you pay, you have to enter this code, SBTE Push 18. So it's S as in state, black, B as in black, T as in tech, E as in ecosystem, Push 18. SBTE Push 18 for complimentary tickets to the summit next week. So thank you for your time.
I'm going to Black Tech Mecca. I want to get involved. I want to get engaged. It's not limited to millennials. I want to know what they're doing and what they're talking about. I want to see this next wave of Black entrepreneurs, African Americans who are engaged in technology, the creativity that they demonstrate. I want to be a part of it. I'm encouraging all of you. If you want the discount, you better sign up. You can call Push at 773-256-2775. And if you call right now, you can get that code and you can register with this complimentary delegate registration. We had a powerful convention this week. We just completed the convention, and I know many of you did not register. You weren't able to come. You couldn't travel here for whatever reason. You missed the convention. So I'm going to give you the highlights of the convention in the next 6 to 7 minutes. And you can put your watch on, put your timer on your phone, and see what we've accomplished. First of all, we had an all-star lineup of speakers, including Stacey Abrams, the first Black woman to be a major party nominee for governor from the state of Georgia, the state that restricted us from entering public schools, the state that said segregation now and segregation forever. We had Reverend William Barber, co-chair of the New Poor People's Campaign. That's where Reverend is marching with him and demonstrating with him today. 2 weeks ago, prior to the convention, Reverend Jackson and Reverend Barber participated in a demonstration together, highlighting the plight of poverty. And then we had the co-chair, we had Brian Stevenson, the founder of the Lynching Museum. He was here. on Saturday. He's the lawyer, an activist, and he has brought to light the 4,000 to 5,000 African Americans who've been lynched since 1877, between 1877 and 1950, not counting the lynchings that we are experiencing today. We opened the convention, however, this year with a strong focus on construction, reinvesting in neighborhoods, reinvesting in the communities where we live. And you've been watching our contractors, our workers here in Chicago coming up on the stage. It's just a model for what we expect around the country. We have Omar Sharif is our jobs construction coordinator. We're going to be shutting down sites this week that don't have us working. But we do want to say on a positive note, some companies are hiring. We have Tamar Harper, Queenie Dixon, Trinicia Thomas, who are now certified flaggers. They're making well in excess of, how much an hour? $35? How much an hour? How much they make? $25 an hour, something like that. Flag 40, huh? $42 an hour. I know, and these women were not working, they're working now. We thank God for, if we fight, if we stand up, we can push doors open. But we need you to come every Thursday in Chicago, 6 to 8. Pastors, you need to send your unemployed people. We train them, and then we open up doors for them. These women are evidence of the fact that we are creating and pushing and creating job opportunities. And it's not just jobs, it's also contracts. So we thank Omar Sharif and his team for all the work they do every Thursday, 6 to 8, 930 East 50th Street. If you want this program in your city, in your town, give us a call right now, 773-256-2775. We are opening up doors and opportunities. This is what your membership can do for others and for you. We fight for you as you support us. We convened at that construction summit and expo developers, contractors, prime contractors, subcontractors, and we demanded and said we want a partnership to rebuild our communities. We're going city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block. It's the Nehemiah model. We're going to rebuild where we live, so when we walk out of our doors, we're going to see ourselves working. Then we had a business breakfast. We talked about diversity and inclusion, locally, nationally, and internationally. We talked about how we can help our brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa do scientific farming, increase the yield so they don't have to import as many agricultural products. And so we're talking about creating a partnership between American companies, historic black colleges and universities, and African universities so that we can exchange information and technology. We placed a major emphasis, John Rogers was one of the speakers, on making sure we have African Americans on boards and in the C-suites of these companies that make decisions about us. And if they either let us in or we'll cut them out of our budgets. We expect investment in black-owned and operated businesses. We're going to be sharing with you more and more which businesses and which companies are manufacturing products are African Americans. And so we'll talk about hair care products. We're going to be talking about who's making some of those greens that you eat in Mariano's. We'll be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the different hair care products. There's a new line of black hair care manufacturers. We'll talk about that next week. But that came out of the convention. We found out that Illinois has cut the education budget by $7.2 billion for K-12 funding. Yet, we're the 5th richest state in the nation. So that's why we will remember you in November. We are not going to let our children not be educated properly. We want full funding for every child, for every school. And so we're going to be convening the state superintendents, not just in Illinois, but around the country. Why do poor children get a poor education and rich children get the best education? It's not right. We'll change the governor, we'll change the state legislatures around this nation, and we're going to change the Congress and the Senate, because we cannot allow these people to go back and vote against our interests. Okay, so anyway, we're going to fight for full funding for every school district, not just for the rich districts. We're launching a partnership with HBCUs and African universities in a student exchange program. Want our students to spend a year or semester in Africa studying, and African students to spend a year or a semester at an HBCU. What is a HBCU? A historic black college, so they can learn their roots, and see the connection between Africa and America. We get all our resources from Africa. We're going to still be fighting for full funding for higher ed and cutting the amount of money we spend our children graduating with student loan debt greater than credit card debt. Oh, and I know y'all wondering, how are we going to do all this? Because all roads lead to November. Midterm elections are critical for us. Why do we care about the governor? Well, we got a black woman running in Georgia, but she's not just the only person we're concerned about, but we can change the South. If we elect Stacey Abrams in Georgia, it'll change Mississippi. It will change Arkansas. It will change Alabama. It will change the 11 southern states, South Carolina, North Carolina, where most of us are from. We're not going to let the segregated South come back and be like it was when our parents were growing up. We're not going back to Jim Crow. We are going to push forward, and we're going to go to the polls. How are we going to go to the polls? Women are going to march to the polls in record numbers. Every mother that has had your stuff cut, your meals cut, your support cut, you need to be voting for food stamps, restoration. You need to be voting for restoration of the health care benefits that have been cut by certain state legislatures. You need to be voting to make sure that your child is getting a fully funded, resourced education. You need to be voting to make sure there's diversity in the teaching staff at your child's school. We want to vote in a manner that will limit the power of a Secretary of Education like Betsy DeVos, who is privatizing public education, taking public dollars, giving them to private companies that don't educate our children and where our children cannot go. So we're asking faith leaders, we're meeting with religious leaders. They met at the convention and they said, look, we're going to make sure that our church members who are eligible to vote are fully registered and they're going to have 100% turnout. So around the country, as we did in 83 and 84 and 88 when Reverend Jackson ran for president, we're going back to a crusade. We're going to turn up and turn out in November. Hashtag we will remember in November. Well, we're going to also challenge our young people. People say the millennials don't vote. They do when they understand. Millennials, what you voting for? Elimination of student loan debt, decrease in college tuition rates. You are voting so that you can have access to a high-quality education or skill and a job when you graduate, whether it's from a tech program. You are fighting for vocational education to be returned to high school. So when you graduate, you have a skill set and you can get a job or you can enter into a career. You are going to register on the campuses where you go to school. No, don't register at home where your mama is and where you don't live. Register where you spend every semester. You can turn the South out. Those of you who are in school in the South, register and vote in those states, and you will change the conditions under which those people who live in Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, Georgia, and all of those southern states, and we're not just limiting it to southern states, but that's the swing in the country. We're going to turn Wisconsin. You don't like what Paul Ryan is saying? Well, we can change Wisconsin. We have the power because we have the votes. Okay. We're going to make sure that when they renovate schools, they close schools, we are there. We can deal with the crisis that Jonathan's going to be talking about at the border. There are two crises at the border. One is in our urban areas. There's violence in our neighborhoods. There are guns at the border. 45 wants to build a wall to keep people out. Why don't you build something to keep the guns out of our inner city communities? There's no law that prevents the influx of guns into the hands of children and people in our urban centers. when you look at how many people are killed in Chicago alone, there should be some outrage. There must be some marching. Father Pfleger cannot be the only church that's marching every week against violence. We challenge every pastor, every community. We have to stop the violence. Our children are killing each other in addition to the police shooting. But it's more person to person than police to person. Both are wrong. And so we're saying, parents, all of our children at risk when any child is at risk. And so we want everybody, we're going to be convening a family meeting because we're going to have to deal with marching, but also changing the legislation. There's no reason for anybody to have a military-style weapon as a civilian. Who are you shooting at? You don't hunt birds with assault weapons. You don't need an automatic weapon for a skeet shooting. And so we are going to change these conditions so that our children can go to school and not be afraid. So if you want to join the movement, if you want to be a part of change, call PUSH right now, 773-256-2775. Some people say, I don't know what y'all doing over there. Well, we marching for change. We're getting contracts for contractors. We are changing. We're getting people employed. We're fighting for education for our children. What else are we doing? We're going on the international scale. We're traveling around the world for human rights. You need to be a part of this. You may not be able to march. Well, send your membership, $35 a year, $15 for students. You may not be able to go and do all of the things. You can't get arrested. Well, you can make some phone calls. You can invite us to, you can have a membership party at your church, in your neighborhood. You can ask your pastor to join the ministers division. If you are your faith leader to join the ministers division, you can get involved. And what else you can do, you can bring your child to the STEAM program so that your child is educated and prepared for the technology that we all live in. All of these major fast food franchises are using robots and drones to serve food. Who's going to program the robots? Who's going to build the robots? Our children have to be ready for the present and the future. If you want to get them ready, they need to be a part of PUSH. I wish I had more time, but you ought to get social with us. You know, Reverend Jackson's on Twitter at Rev J. Jackson. You can friend him on Facebook. You can watch him live on Facebook every day. He is doing a lot of stuff, and Jonathan will tell you, Luther Jackson will tell you about what he's doing, because he's social too. I see him on Facebook. We talk to each other on Facebook, but we'd rather talk in person. So I need you all to stop by here if you're in the Chicago area. You need to come to PUSH every Saturday. Bring your family so you can get involved, get informed, and get educated. Get registered, get doing. Well, I have to go. I'm so excited. I wish you all would be as excited as I am. Well, I don't care if you're not. I just need you to get involved and get engaged. We're moving. We're on the move. We got young, we got middle-aged, we got old like me. We're going somewhere, and we are fighting for you. That's what we do. I want you to stand and greet warmly after this musical selection, Jonathan Luther Jackson. Crisis at the border. And what we are going to do about that, and what you're going to help us do. We thank God for each one of you.
Oh my, listen. Some say my future not that bright. Oh, some say I'm useless, unholy, not living right. But beginning of the day, I look in the mirror and say, I am somebody. Oh, I believe the future's in my hands. I tell every girl, boy, woman, or man, if I could think it, I can believe it, create it and achieve it. So I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Maybe down and pushed away at the beginning of the day. I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. turn and walk away, but at the end of this day, saying, I am. Oh, 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 I am. God made me somebody. Yeah, 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 yeah. You can turn and walk away. End of this day, saying, I am. Listen. I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. You can turn and walk away. Any of this day, say I am. I am. Oh, pray for me. Oh, pray with me. Oh, pray with me for the world, for the children. Oh, so just pray with me. Oh, pray with me. Oh, pray for the world. Come on, pray with me. Pray with me, pray with me. So let's just pray with me. Oh, pray with me. Oh, just pray. Pray with me. Pray with me.
Let us give Brother Maurice Mahan a loving round of applause. Maurice joined Rainbow Push and is the creator of that beautiful song. We keep his father-in-law, Mr. Brownlee, in prayer today. I would like to thank each and every one of you that has kept my parents in your prayers as I pray for your families as well. We see our nation in a crisis at the border. I, like many of you, was alarmed to see a certain jacket with writing on the back of it that said, I do not care, do you? This is a sermon in stone. And today I would like to remark, I do care, do you? I want to thank Reverend Barber for standing with my father and my father for standing with Reverend Barber. The true essence of the ministry, ministers on the move. Like Mr. Mahan had just sung, pray for me. Let us be clear on what prayer is. I don't pray on my knees. When I come to Push on Saturday and speak truth to power, when I stand up and go to events and tell the truth and try to make a difference, I'm asking that God work through me, and that's prayer when you're in action. Put your faith in action. Start on your knees and end on your feet and move something even if it's with your hands. There's a crisis on the border. Let us be clear on what the term crisis is. Crisis is an unintended action or consequence. My brothers and sisters, this isn't a crisis. This is a manufactured human catastrophe. People say, I am shocked. This isn't the America that we are. My brothers and sisters, then you must not know the history of America. When I saw those children down there, as it moved my heart, 2,300 now are moving around the country. And how does it happen? Persons are fleeing places that have violence. And we're going to have to go over a few words because this topic is going to evolve, but now we're getting down to the roots. We're not hitting at the branches and simply the trunk. We're getting down to the root And God knows if we can fix that, we can fix all of America. I'll share a little story with you. We got some new flowers planted out by my house, and I watered them every day, and it became therapeutic for me. And then all of a sudden, I started seeing the flowers wilt. Then I had to find out what was going on. Did the flower have enough sunlight? Should they be moved? What exactly was wrong? Then I came across the term of root rot. Root rot. Things can be overwatered, or things can be lacking the supplement in the soil that it needs for the nutrients in the flowers. We got to get down to the roots, because there's some rotten roots in America. My brothers and sisters, in the history of America, when I saw those children, I could not help but think about a young lady that came from, they say, either Senegal or Gambia. And they tried to approximate her age, and they came up with the age between 7 and 8 years old. She ended up in Boston, Massachusetts. A family by the name of the Wheatleys ended up calling her Phyllis because that was the name of the boat. So for the family named Wheatley that saw a child come off a boat named Phyllis, they called the first African American ever to be freed in America Phyllis Wheatley. A child that was kidnapped. I don't want us to have the term of slave. We are all part of an immigration and a migration pattern. Some of us were kidnapped. Some persons came on their free volition. But we didn't come, and God didn't create a slave nowhere on earth. You weren't a slave somewhere. You were living peacefully. And then because of kidnapping and someone having designated you to be their property and not being human, they labeled you as a slave, but you never were a slave. Words have meaning, and they do matter. So the young lady, Phyllis Wheatley, followed the story. She ended up writing a book of her poetry. She met with the founders of the nation, John Hancock and George Washington. She was a brilliant young lady. The United States wouldn't publish her. She got published in London. And in turn, she was the first person emancipated out of the bestiality of slavery. And as the story goes, she married. Her husband was imprisoned for, they say, debts. Doesn't that sound like a foreclosed home? Doesn't that sound like your credit score being jacked up? Doesn't that sound like having to get subprime loans and overcharge on your car payment from a credit collection company? Doesn't that sound like a credit company giving you a false charge and you haven't had the time to either fight it or not sophisticated enough to understand the trickery in the language of the bankruptcy? He was indebted, went to jail. Her 2 children died in their infancy. Doesn't that sound like a lack of child care? This is the first African in North America to be freed from the bestiality of slavery. Now let's come up to 2018. Because there's a consistency, and I think when our children understand this, they will be the better and the stronger. Who works for us is Mr. Johnny Lee Savory, a child right here in the state of Illinois who was accused of a double murder and was put on death row at the age of 14 in the state of Illinois. There's a crisis in our consciousness and in our soul of America. I remember first when I started reading the Bible, I thought it was incredulous to think that some man could want to kill all the newborn children. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, this has to be mythology and lore. And I began to have a fascination with words. And I looked up the word infanticide. And if you go to the etymology, you will see that it starts with King Herod coming after baby Jesus. The whole concept of a person wanting to kill children, infanticide, because it happened before in world history. The other word for the day that we have to have is misopedia. What does misopedia mean? I'm glad you asked. It's for those that hate their children. America has a long and dark history of hating its own children. What are we seeing at the border? We're seeing this manifestation of a hatred of children. Who would do something as diabolical as separating a mother from a child? When I first saw Mr. Trump moving towards office, I said, let me see what the market is going to say about Mr. Trump. Let me go to the lowest, darkest corner of our financial system that people seem to glorify to see if I have any indication of what's going on. My brothers and sisters, I started looking up the prison stocks. If you look up Core Civic, which used to be Correctional Corporation of America, GO Group, you will see that the stocks have all doubled since Mr. Trump has been in office. The congressional mandate came out and said that they will have 34,000 beds on retainer with the correctional corporations for future immigrants, and now they want to move it up to 50,000 beds, either unused, they still have to pay the stocks. I went back to the financial records and started hearing the conference calls that they give to the investors. And they said because of this new enforcement of immigration, they could look at a surge in their revenue for prison stocks. When I see Microsoft Cloud Computing having a contract for this ICE agency, I am baffled. When I see Cadre Padre, a nonprofit organization in Texas, having 26 facilities, and this year they're going to earn $458 million because they want to participate. When I go on job postings to look at General Dynamics, and they have a subsidiary that is posting for a job to work in immigrant facilities, and it says for have tender engagement at children facilities. What does tender engagement mean? That means the babies are so young they still need their mother, and they have a job posting. Follow me, please. I want you to see the money that is involved and how the stocks have doubled. I care, do you? When I saw the leadership of United Airlines and American Airlines and Delta and Southwest say they will not transport the people and these ICE agents, thank God for that sort of leadership. This sort of catastrophe could not happen without consent. I was reminded of the New Bedford, Massachusetts case. You know, there is not one law on the books that says if you see something going wrong, if you see a crime being committed, if you do not step up and do something about it, you are punishable. What happened in New Bedford, Massachusetts in 1982? A young lady had gotten raped in a bar. People sat there and watched it, and nobody that watched it was prosecuted. But brothers and sisters, those of us in the Christian faith, those of us that have conscience, God will prosecute us for standing by and doing nothing. I care. Do you? When we see that this is the most incarcerated nation on earth, and when we know there are 1,200 juveniles across the United States of America today that are locked up in adult prisons, I'm talking about under the age of 18. They become sexually abused and molested. When they get out of there, they become predators. They're 36 times more likely to commit suicide. I care. Do you? When you hear about all this sort of gun violence and all these drive-bys and this senseless violence, I want to go to the roots. Do you know where this is coming from? Do you know where the fuel is being put on this fire? These children are angry because they've been exploited. They've been sexually molested. They've been through a period of subjugation and dehumanization. I care. Do you? How can you sit back and act like you don't know when Reverend Attorney Jeanette Wilson says she was fired up? Why is she so fired up? Because every day she wakes up with a commitment to do something. She cares. Do you? We have right here in the city of Chicago a sex abuse scandal going on in our own public school system. And when the preachers will meet with the mayor and never confront him about wickedness in high places, there's something wrong. When you're not asking for any board members to have a resignation, when you're not asking for the CEO to step down, when the mayor has no press conference about it, something is wrong. How many of the children that are shooting this weekend were the same children that have been the victims of a sexual predator? Teachers, you need to care about this. Because the little child who was smiling one day and came back into the class the following day, whose head is down, who has a shameful look, who has a defense about him, who's fighting, whose personality has been altered, and you know there's something is wrong. Did you know what he has gone through? And when adults hide their hand and say nothing, why? Because they're waiting to cash out. They want to finish their tenure. They want to keep their job. They want to do good in man's sight. God will punish us. I care. Do you? When we see these prison stocks soaring on detention and warehousing of human beings. So how does this work? They capture the people crossing the borders. Then they separate the men and the women from the children. Now the men and women go to jail and the children go to a detention facility. Then the Office of Refugee Settlement takes the children and places them in foster systems and other companies. The company of Dilley and Kearney, even in the state of Texas, they were lobbying to call these detention facilities child care facilities. And in the memorandums they had published, they called them baby jails. One is an hour north of Houston. Come on, y'all, we see it going on every day. I care. Do you? When I think about the life of our baby Jesus, can you imagine that a mother and a father had to flee because the king that had a harem, that had wealth, that had power, was so afraid of a future child that was born into poverty and had nothing? When other kings came that were religiously inclined and spiritually aware, they wanted to bring offerings for the child. And then what did the king ask King Herod? He says, after you see this baby, I too want to know where he is. Please come back through here and let me know so I can also go visit him. These wives, 3 kings, did not go back to see King Herod again. They bowed down and gave the baby what they had, the frankincense, the myrrh, the gold, and told the family to flee. Are we talking about the same Bible? I know it's not Christmas time, but this is the fact of the story. Jesus understands the plight of the refugee. He was one. He immigrated. You immigrate when you move. You're a refugee when you have to flee from persecution. He understood that. Follow the story. Then the king sensed that something was wrong and nobody got back to him. So what did he do? He went and said, kill all the firstborn babies in that area. He's in there somewhere, just go kill them all. And in conclusion, by the time Jesus comes back as a teenager, what could Jesus have possibly have felt? Because I was always so concerned about why did Jesus, his strongest words of rebuke and anger, when he says, if you were to cause a child to stumble, it would be better for you to have a millstone wrapped around your neck and put in the sea. I'm like, ooh, Jesus, that's pretty strong. You want to wrap a stone that God knows not one man can pick up on his own, put it on someone's neck, and drop them to the bottom of the sea? Why would Jesus say that? Because by the time he came back to his hometown as a teenager, and you know when we're younger, people ask you, how old are you? I'm 7, I'm 7 and a half. How old are you? I'm 8, 8 and a half. You know, I'm 11, I'm about to be 12, so you start seeing you 12 when you're still 11. And then by the time you get to be 30, people say, I don't like to discuss my age. And then by the time you get in our 50s, you start forgetting which birthday this was. Was this my 52nd or 51st? Then you got to go back and count the year you were born. Right? So by the time Jesus came back as a 13-year-old, there were no 13-year-olds in the village. All the children 2 years above him and beneath him had been killed. So all the parents looked at this child, said, you're the reason my child has been killed. They were looking for you, but all of our children got killed. Jesus felt the responsibility and the burden of having survived infanticide when all the children were killed. Now he has to go back and tell us it is better that you have a millstone wrapped around your neck and be thrown into the sea than to force one of these children to stumble. Ladies and gentlemen, I care. Do you? When I see a person getting off a government plane and their words say one thing, but their actions say another, that's an abomination in God's eyesight. I care. Do you? But let me tell you something about caring. I want you to start caring before it's too late and before it's your problem and your problem alone. It was July of 2017 when the Department of Justice issued a decree that said 50,000 Haitians had to be returned back to Haiti. I cared about that. Did you? Brothers and sisters, we have work to do. Where are we now? We're moving forward on demonstrations going across this country. This is a battle now for the life and soul of our children. We are seeing a generation of traumatized children. I care. Do you? Why should you care quick, fast, and in a hurry? As we get ready to move from our house to assisted living, to senior housing, some of these children are going to have to care for you too. And the child of the abused will end up being an abuser too. You would want to care. I do. You should too.
He keeps doing great things for me. Oh, he keeps doing great things for me. If I had 10,000
it's offering time. Give yourselves a hand clap. This is where you can participate, you can become engaged, you can become involved. I need all of you who are sitting here who are not members of Rainbow Push to raise your hand. Those of you who are not members, please pass them a membership envelope. Those of you who are planning to give $100 or more, raise your hand. We got contribution envelopes for you. Those of you who are watching us in our viewing audience, we want you to become a member of Rainbow Push. It's $35 a year. It's $15 a year for students and seniors. You can go to rainbowpush.org wherever you are, rainbowpush.org, and become a member right now. If you don't have a computer and you're watching us and you want to become a member, you can call us 773-256-2775, 773-256-2775. If you have a computer or a smartphone, go to rainbowpush.org, press donate. Those of you who are here and you're ready to give, won't you raise your offering in your hand? Stand if you have $100 or more. I know there's a $100 person in the audience. I know there's several of you that have $100. If you don't want to walk, raise your hand and the ushers will come and get it from you. Those of you who have $50 or more, I need you to raise your offering in your hand and go to the aisle closest to where you're seated and bring it forward. I'm going to come down your street, so you just don't keep sitting there. Those of you who have something to give, you want to be a member, you want to make a contribution, once you stand, go to the aisle closest to you while the choir is singing some giving music.
People keep on running, yeah. Soldiers keep on warring, yeah. World, keep on turning, 'cause it won't be too long. Oh no, no, listen now. Powers keep on lying to me in my face. My people, y'all, don't stop dying. No, no, no. World, keep on turning, 'cause it won't be too long. Yeah. Oh, so glad that you let me try again. Last time I never in the whole world to sing, y'all. So glad that I know more than I knew then. Gonna keep on trying till I reach my high ground. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lovers, keep on loving one another. Oh, preachers, don't stop preaching. No. Sleepers, you just got to stop sleeping. It won't be too long. Oh, yeah.
We have credit card. I know some of you have a debit card, a credit card. You don't carry cash or checks. You can swipe your contribution. Come on down right here. Swipe is finally here. Come and swipe. Anyone else want to swipe? Has everyone had an opportunity to give? If you didn't move and you want someone to pick your offering up, raise your hand and they'll come to you. If you want to swipe, come on down right here.
Higher, higher ground, higher ground, higher ground. Don't let no one keep me from getting high ground. Higher ground, yeah, higher ground. Oh, so glad that you let me try again. Last time I'll never live the whole world understand. So big that I know more than I knew then. Gonna keep on trying,
going to make sure that you can swipe earlier in the broadcast, and we will be starting our text to give next Saturday to make it convenient for those of you who don't carry cash, don't carry checks, but you really want to support this movement. I want you to do me a favor for next week. Reverend Jackson will be returning from the Poor People's Campaign. I need each of you to invite 5 people you know who haven't been to Push this year or who need to come to Push this year to join you at Push. We'll have several of our young people and their parents. If you know of children who can benefit, and I know that all of them can, from our summer STEAM program, they need to be here next Saturday for breakfast at 8:00 a.m. They need to register to join. Registration is simply a student membership at Push. I know all of our flaggers, once they get that first check, they're going to be members. All of the flaggers, they make more hour than Jonathan does, and I do. So we're looking forward to get all your flagger women. We're going to fill this audience with flaggers and workers. We want to put our community back to work. So at least we can fill this center section with 500 people we have put back to work. Did everyone have a chance to give? Okay, would you stand? Let's stand together. Mr. Rush, we're so grateful you're here with us today. Thank you for coming. Anybody that's a candidate for office need to come back here on Saturdays. Join hands as we sing together, We Shall Overcome. We shall. Come on, y'all. Y'all know I can't sing.
We shall overcome someday.
Come on, let's join in.
Well, deep in my heart, oh, I believe that we shall overcome someday.
One more time, everybody.
Well, we shall overcome. Somebody sing it, we shall. Let it ring out that we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, oh, I believe that we shall overcome someday.
May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord grant you his everlasting peace and give you traveling mercies as you leave this place.
We shall overcome someday. Oh,